Take it away.
Go Vikings, let's win the game. Go Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, let's get a touchdown. Rock up, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run up the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Go Vikings, let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Vikings Spin. I'm your host, Jason, and we are going to do the Vikings-Packers Week 6 preview podcast. The Vikings come into this game with a record of 3-2, and the Packers come into the game at 4-1. This game is going to be played at US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, and it's going to be brought to you by Fox NFL Sunday. It's a 12 noon game if you're here at Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern. Coming into this game, we'll take a look at the injury reports and the individual matchups, as well as keys for Vikings victory. It looks to be here on the injury report for the Vikings, Sam Bradford, Nick Easton, and Stephon Diggs are out. Andrew Zendejo is questionable, though he participated today in practice on a limited basis. I would expect that he'll probably be in the game. For the Packers, they're starting strong safety Morgan Burnett, backup linebacker Joe Thomas, outside linebacker Ahmad Brooks, and cornerback Kevin King are out. They're also questionable. There is going to be left tackle David Bakhtiari, and questionable is Ty Montgomery. I think Ty Montgomery looks like he's going to play. He's been participating in practice fully for the Packers this week. David Bakhtiari, on the other hand, made some comments during the week that he wants to make sure that he's 100% before coming back out there. So I would say he's really genuinely 50-50 on if he's going to play. And so with that said, Green Bay has been playing without Bakhtiari now for a couple of weeks. And Rodgers has been sacked quite a bit. They were able to overcome it last week with their running game, taking some of the pressure off of Rodgers. Aaron Jones, the rookie running back, had a big day against the Dallas defense. But the Dallas defense plays very poor gap control, I noticed. And looking at Pete Bursich's film on Vikings.com. And the Vikings play their run very well, and they're very disciplined in their gaps. So I don't expect them to have the same problems that the Dallas Cowboys had. And then also, in the past against the Packers starting tackles, which if Bakhtiari goes, will be him on the left side and Brian Bulaga on the right side. The Vikings have had success against these guys, with Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, Brian Robinson. So if Bakhtiari goes in there a little hobbled against Everson Griffin, then so be it. I think he can take him no problem. If they have to slide their guard Lane Taylor over there, they're going to be in even bigger trouble. But I do like that matchup for the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers will do things probably like he'll, to try to get the ball out of there quick, to offset the pass rush. I'm sure that the Packers, if they are struggling to contain the Vikings pass rush, will make adjustments like that. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Now for the matchups, individual matchups, for the Vikings offense versus the Packers defense, obviously Case Keenum is getting a start at quarterback because Bradford's knee is just not ready yet. My guess, like I said on the previous podcast after the Bears game, is I'm expecting him to be back after the bye. And, and I think that's okay because I think Case Keenum can do a pretty good job holding down the fort. And he did a nice job last week. It was different than what he did against Tampa Bay, where he went more so down the field against them. He kind of dinked and dunked his way against Chicago, but it worked. Um, with Green Bay having some injuries in the secondary, but then also the Vikings not having Diggs, it looks to be on the outside you're going to have Green Bay's top corners are going to be Devon House. They're going to have Randall and Rollins. House is probably going to cover Adam Thielen because Thielen is going to be the number one this week. But the Vikings are still going to put him in the slot too when they go 3 receiver sets. Michael Floyd's going to play, probably going to start in the 2 receiver sets and then stay on the outside in the 3 receiver sets. And you'll see probably a mixture of Jarius Wright, Laquan Treadwell, and Stacy Coley picking up the slack for the third and for that being the third receiver, or even when they go into 4 sets. That tells me Kyle Rudolph is going to be a big part of the game plan. Now the Packers, with Diggs out, are they going to double Adam Thielen? Are they going to double Kyle Rudolph? They could do that, but if you double Adam Thielen, then you're going to have Kyle Rudolph. He's going to be one-on-one somewhere. If Thielen's taking up a safety, they're going to line Rudolph up on the same side. So the Vikings can definitely do that. So I think they can absorb the loss of Diggs in this game. With and especially with the Packers, having Burnett at safety out and King at cornerback out, kind of levels it out there quite a bit. But I think the key for the Vikings offense is going to be how we play up front. Now Nick Easton is out at left guard, but Jeremiah Searles is a capable backup at left guard. He's had to play some snaps this season anyway when Easton's had to go out for a few plays or something. Searles is fine. He started 10 games last season. He's better at guard than tackle, and he's going to be asked to play left guard, so I'm not really worried about him. The Vikings just have to establish the running game and control the clock. I think that's going to be one of the keys to winning the game. Matchups on defense, of course, it's going to be our defensive line versus their offensive line. Griffin and Hunter against the tackles, whoever they may be, and then on the inside, the Packers have Lane Taylor, Corey Lindsey, and Jari Evans. Those are their interior offensive linemen. They're going to be going up against Linval Joseph, Tom Johnson, Shamar Stephen, Brian Robinson, Jaleel Johnson. I think the Vikings are going to. We have a very deep defensive line, and the Packers are a little banged up on their offensive line. I think the Vikings should be able to give Green Bay some problems there. Special teams, the Vikings defense versus the Packers offense. Before we get to special teams, you've got Jordy Nelson. You gotta think that Xavier Rhodes is going to be following Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson is primarily an outside receiver, so I would think that Rhodes is just going to follow him. Trey Waynes will probably be matched up on Devontae Adams. Adams does most of his work on the outside, and Waynes was matched up against him last year. Trey Waynes actually had that interception of Aaron Rodgers when the Vikings beat the Packers in US Bank Stadium last year. He stepped in front of a pass intended for Devontae Adams to seal the 17-14 win for the Vikings. And I would say Randall Cobb, of course, he's their main guy in the slot, and he'll be guarded by the combination of Terrence Newman, who is getting the majority of nickel reps, but the Vikings are also mixing in Mackenzie Alexander and Tremaine Brock as well. Those are going to be your matchups to watch there. You know, on special teams, you know, the Vikings now coming off, Kai Forbath is coming off a good game. He didn't miss any extra points. He made both of his field goals, including a game winner. Mason Crosby is coming off of a little bit of a rough game for Green Bay, but you know, I've seen him bounce back too. So, you know, he's still a solid kicker. The Vikings are doing really good on punt coverage, kick return coverage. The key will be not to have any mishaps on special teams, no fumbles. McKinnon's got to hold that ball high and tight on them kickoffs. You know, Green Bay, I believe their main return man is Jeff Janis, who's got some speed to him. I think their units they have, I would probably say, average special teams units as far as covering kicks and punts. But the keys to the Vikings' victory here is really going to be running the ball and stopping the run and gap discipline. If the Vikings can run the ball with the combination of Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray like they did against the Bears, they have a really good chance at having some success in this game, because that's going to open up the play action for Case Keenum, and he really does excel on play action and when he's able to throw on the run. So I would expect the Vikings to try to establish the running game, and they're going to be patient with the running game as well. And on defense, what I mean by gap discipline, you know, the Cowboys were not disciplined in their gaps, and they let Aaron Jones run on them, and you can't let the Packers run on you, because then if you give Aaron Rodgers, you know, if you have to give him less attention and their play action game can actually work and fool you, you're in a lot of trouble. But the Vikings have been excellent against the run this season. I don't expect that to change. Aaron Jones, I do not think, is going to have the type of game he had against a much weaker Dallas defense coming to town in Minnesota against the Vikings. The Vikings can keep the Packers one-dimensional and keep the Packers in third and long, then they can get after Aaron Rodgers. They'll have to rush him smart, because he can use those run lanes. But the one thing that Aaron Rodgers does that I think could be beneficial to the Vikings, and the Vikings have had success against him in the past on this, is Aaron Rodgers tends to hold the ball a long time because he's trying to make something happen. He also tends to hold the ball low, and he can be easily strip sacked. We've done it a bunch of times against him. Everson Griffin's done it, Danielle Hunter, Brian Robinson. Over the years, we've been able to do that to him. And when we're hitting him a lot, when we're sacking him, you know, and getting turnovers, we beat them when we do that. So that's going to be the key for the Vikings. Stop the run first, and then you'll be able to get after Rodgers more. Be opportunistic when you're tackling him. Try to go for the ball and make things happen. Because if we can win the turnover battle, that's another key. Third down efficiency is a key. You know, stay ahead of the down and distance on offense, and you know, put them in the third and longs when we're on defense, because the Vikings have the best third down defense in the NFL. So if we can get them into third downs, a good chance that we're going to get them off the field. You know, and that's the best way to make them, you know, to get sacks on a team, is to make them one-dimensional and get them in those third down situations. So that's how I see it going down here as far as keys to the Vikings' victory. I do thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of Viking Spin, and we will see you next time. We'll leave you with a little NFL on Fox Music, since that's where the game will be broadcast. So long.